In today's grant update, we want to talk about all grant pressure group. When mentioning the name all grant pressure group, the question that usually come into our minds is that is their pressure really good? Is their pressure really helping people in the grant community? Considering the present saga and the present extortion from their end and all what is going on in all grant pressure group platform. Stay with us till the end. This question will be answered in this video. Is their pressure really helping the poor masses in the grant community? Let's dive into a brief background about this group called All Grant Pressure Group. Stay tuned as we bring you a brief background of All Grant Pressure Group, and thereafter we will answer the question of their existence, whether they are helping the Nigerian citizens or they are harming the people. Let's dive into an article that is spreading all over the social media about the background of All Grant Pressure Group. Let's take a look at what actually give birth to All Grant Pressure Group and their activities. I read All Grant Pressure Group, from fraud investigators to fraud innovators. Follow me carefully as I'm going to explain. It will be a little bit lengthy, but it's necessary for us to know how come about All Grant Pressure Group and what their activities like in the grant community to the people in the grant space. Ladies and gentlemen, gathered around for the most thrilling scam series of the decade, starring none other than the All Grant Pressure Group of Nigeria. We are going to talk about All Grant Pressure Group, the fearless fraud fighters who have time and time again bravely led Nigerians straight into the arms of new scams. This isn't just a story. It is a well-oiled business model that has been running since 2018. The pattern is so predictable that at this point, all Grant Pressure Group should trademarks it. But let's break it down for those who haven't been paying attention to this group called All Grant Pressure Group. Let's take a look at episode 1. Pay attention, you will get to know who these people are. All Grant Pressure Group. Episode 1, the Herald Investigator. Episode 1, they were investigator trying to look at the truth about the existing grant as at then in Nigeria, as those people came up extorting the masses. Take a look at, listen to episode 1. Sometime in 2016, a grant scheme called Social Exchange Market (SEM) emerged, rolling Nigerians with promises of financial assistance. The scheme operated through influential clergymen who urged their congregation to register, of course, for a fee. Thousands subscribed, hoping for life-changing grants. This is same as at that time that came up, and also the pastors were the people that they used to drag their members collecting money, trusting that the grant will come as a life-changing opportunity. Let's break down. But time passed, weeks turn into months, months turn into years. The supposed benefactor of SEM under Donald Trump vanished, leaving participants in limbo. This was what happened. Desperation grew, and some key investors, the one who had mobilized people into the scheme, decided to take action. Let's go ahead. They formed a group called Telpicon, helping to take over a disbursement process. But Telpicon too dragged Nigerians along, spinning tail and delay. This frustration led to the birth of All Grand Pressure Group of Nigeria, a self-proclaimed watchdog group that vowed to overcome the truth behind SAME and Telpicon. This is how All Grand Pressure Group started. And of course, stay with us as we would go through gradually. They began an investigation to find out what happened to their promised grants. Nigerians, still clinging to hope, funded this effort, giving money for research, access to government offices, and stakeholders' engagement. After all this noise, All Grand Pressure Group delivered the conclusion: the grants were a scam. After people giving them money, funding them, supporting them for them to go on a research, going into government offices to take a look at the document they claim, they came up with a conclusion that the grant they are selling is a scam. Talking about All Grand Pressure Group, what happened then? But this was only sorry about that. But this was only the beginning. Let's take a look at episode 2. The feast began. After their so-called success in exposing SAME and Telpicon, our Grand Pressure Group realized something. Nigerians were willing to pour money into any cause that seemed to promise a financial breakthrough. The floodgates opened. They opened the gate. New grants began to surface: Golden Bridge, OSEA, Liberation Grant, Commonwealth Grant, National Builders, even bizarre scheme like plantain plantation surfaced as well. And who were the mastermind behind these new initiatives? The very same clergymen who had claimed to be victims of sin, having seen far hand, having seen firsthand how easy it was to sell and dream of free money. They set up their own grand schemes. This is what happened. Oh. Pay attention. How we get here will be exposed in this article. Then came Supreme Entertainment. Wow, Supreme has been in the system for a very long time, and she is still extorting money till date. She might have built mansion. God help Nigerians. Led by a woman who was far more cunning than the others. She saw our Grand Pressure Group as a potential threat, but also as an opportunity. Instead of resisting their scrutiny, she pulled them in, offered them gifts, even handed out cars to all Grand Pressure Group members. All Grand Pressure Group members who had once claimed to be champions of justice suddenly became her biggest endorser. They endorsed Supreme. They helped register Nigerians into her grant, collected fees and percents from the fees and link and line their pocket. Let's continue. The so-called investigators had now become part of the feast. Episode number 3: The Great Betrayal. And that is what is currently going on till date: betrayal in the grant ecosystem. Let's dive into episode 3, The Great Betrayal. As all Grand Pressure Group grew wealthier, greed took center stage. Internal fractures began to form. Leaders who had once worked together now turned against each other. That is what is currently happening today in all Grand Pressure Group. Some members started questioning the fairness of the sharing formula within the group. To the public, it appears as if some members were betrayed because exposing inconsistencies and speaking out. But in reality, it was all about money. Those who weren't getting their fair cut rebelled. The conflict became too heated and the organization split. Comrade Kingsley, the then president of All Grand Pressure Group, walked away and formed his own scheme, and that was NEDHF. That was his own scheme. Other factions emerged, some remaining loyal to Supreme Entertainment, while others distanced themselves. Those who had received gifts and benefits defended Supreme. Those who hadn't denounced it. But Supreme Entertainment was only a chapter in a much bigger story. Let's dive into uh, episode 4, the next big coin. As all Grand Pressure Group recognized under new leadership, this time with a man named Newman at the helm. There was a man called Newman that came in. Of course, he is still alive, speaking for Theophilus at the moment. He came up after uh, Comrade Kingsley left the group, considering some uh, people collecting money from Supreme family. A man came up as the new president, Newman. Let's go in and then listen. Sorry about that. Let's go in and then listen to what happened when Newman took over. A new grant surfaced, Theobarth Global Foundation, led by Apostle Theophilus. This scheme presented itself as the real deal. Our Grand Pressure Group, now experienced in the game, approached Theobarth just as they had approached Supreme. But Theophilus also was no fool. He understood the game. He studied the game before coming in. He prepared himself before coming in. Having learned from Supreme, he didn't fight them. He welcomed them. He brought them into his inner circle, showing them with money and influence. This was what happened in the era of Newman's being the president of All Grand Pressure Group. Before long, All Grand Pressure Group was once again endorsing a grant they hadn't even fully vetted. They became Theobarth's mouthpiece, convincing Nigerians to register, collecting fees, and benefiting from commissions. But as always, greed took over. Of course, this has been their problem in that group. Some more Grand Pressure Group leaders felt they weren't getting enough. This led to yet another split. You This leads to another split. Ustaz Dawood and uh, German Machine broke away with others accusing Theobarth of being a fraud. The cycle of betrayal continued. Stay with us. We will expose All Grant Pressure Group and their activities. You get to know who they are and their activity in the grant community. Let's go there. They reported Theophilus to the Economic and Financial Crime Commission (EFCC), and he was arrested after about 12 days in detention. He admitted that he had no grant, but the coin was far from over. Even after Apostle Cain admitted in AFCC that he has no grant to give to the poor masses after extorting enough money through the help of All Grant Pressure Group led by Newman. They were the mouthpiece then to Apostle Theophilus, collecting money and getting their commission. Of course, after he was arrested through some group that broke out from All Grant Pressure Group, and he confessed the fact that he doesn't have grant to give to the people. The struggle begins. Let's dive into episode 5, the grandfather of all scam. Episode 5, the grandfather of all scam. Stay with us. This is so interesting. You get to know Organ Pressure Group if they are doing, if their pressure is for the benefit of the people in the grant community, or if their pressure is making people go through stress and killing people in the grant community. Episode 5, the grandfather of all scam. Interesting. Following Theophilus' confession, all Grand Pressure Group leaders saw an opportunity. They spun a new narrative. The money existed, but it did not belong to Theophilus. They came up with the idea that there's money. Follow me carefully. After they arrest Theophilus, and Theophilus confessed that there was no money anywhere, another all Grand Pressure Group split under the leadership of German Machine and Ustaz Dawood. Now they came up with the idea that there is money, but it didn't it did not belong to Theophilus. This money was not belong to Theophilus. Instead, it belongs to a deceased woman named Mamarita, who had allegedly given Theophilus the document for prayers. And since Theophilus had been caught, the real beneficiary needed to be found. Here comes Apostle Ken Wakama. Apostle Ken Wakama came to birth in the grant community. According to All Grant Pressure Group of Nigeria, Apostle Ken was Mamarita rightful hen. Here, they introduced him to the public and the true handler of the grants. This is All Grant Pressure Group doing this. After discovering the fact that the document for this grant belongs to Mamarita, and they introduced Apostle Cain as the person that was so close to Mamarita, and he is the one to disburse. Let's dive in there. Nigerians desperately for closure clung to this new hope and poured money into yet another registration processes. The amount being collected skyrocketed to 5,000, 10,000, 500,000, and even 5 million. For 2 years, Apostle Cain and Ogram Pressure Group rode this wave, amassing wealth under the banner of UAAG, but then, as always, greed shattered the illusion. Internal disputes erupted. Apostle Cain Wakama, who was collecting and managing the funds, started withholding money from All Grand Pressure Group leaders. What began as minor Disagreement snowball into open conflict. This is actually what happened that after our organ pressure group selling Apostle Cain as the right person to disburse this grant, they splitted because they split with Apostle Cain because Apostle Cain was the one that managed the money that was coming in. And they saw it as usual and split and start some disagreement. Slowly, they become an enemy and they split from Apostle Cain Wakama. Let's go ahead and we'll get to know who this all grand pressure group are. To say first, all grand pressure group had to came up with yet another lies. Hmm. Listen, oh, they now claim that after all this time, they had discovered that Apostle Ken Wakama name was not in the grant document. That was what actually happened. The same document they had once vouched for was now non-existent or fake. The same grant they had championed was now a scam. Follow me carefully. You get to know all Grand Pressure Group and who they are. The deception had came full circle. Episode 6. Let's take a look at episode 6. Episode 6 says the final evolution from watchdog to kingpins. After years of jumping from scam to scam, making gullible Nigerians at every turn, our Grand Pressure Group had reached their final form, or so think. They are no longer just endorsing scam. They became the scam itself. Pay attention to us. A new business model. Why promoting a fraud when you can own one? They came up with a new business model, and that slogan is a new business. No, why promote a fraud when you can own one? By 2024, Nigerians were wising up after same-tail become supreme and Theophilus. People started asking questions. The usual pattern was becoming too obvious. Organ Pressure Group investigate a grant. The grant handlers bribed them. They endorse the grant and bring a member. The grant collapsed and Organ Pressure Group split. They move to a new grant and repeat the process. But now, Organ Pressure Group had an idea. Why keep promoting other people's scam? Why not create our own? Follow us as we answer the question: is their pressure helping Nigerians in the grant community or destroying the people? If you were listening to me from the end, Up Grand Pressure Group came up with the sole aim to watch over these guys scamming Nigerians. And when they saw the money, they dive in and collect their own percentage, preaching to them to follow. Let's dive in to their main activities as we answer the question. The bed of all Grand Pressure Group palliative. We want to talk about their palliative after they've gone through or they split from uh, Apostle King Wakama. And so the government, all Grand Pressure Group palliative was born. I read, the bed of all Grand Pressure Group palliative. This time, there was no middleman, no SIM, no Telpicon, no Supreme, no Theobarth, no UAAG. This was their own direct scam. Listen and follow us carefully. They came, they claim the palliative was from the federal government, but in reality, it was just all Grand Pressure Group using their name and influence to keep the fraud alive. Fake legitimacy. Let's go ahead. To make it look official, they did what every good scammer does. They took pictures with some persons in government offices. They held meeting with few local leaders. They got a certificate to register their name, but no real legal standing. And then the final money grab began. At first, this assured Nigerians that there was no registration fee. Those who had previously signed up for all Grand Pressure were automatically included. But behind the scheme, they began recruiting marketers, trusted members for their inner circle who were tasked with collecting money for registration. They came up and they sell their scam. This was their own personal scam called palliative. They went to offices, take pictures, and then made it look good as if it is real. And then they recruit some key guys in the grants community to advocate for them. And one of these was that this man too split eyes of the spirit split from UAAG, that he was speaking and vowing to follow UAG till the end, split and join them, and he was marketing all Grand Pressure Group as the real guys, talking about eyes of the spirit. But these days, we've not heard from him for some time now. We are yet to listen to him, and I believe this uh, history about his group will get to him so that he will come and address us as to whether this message that I saw online is true or not. I'm talking about eyes of the spirit, one of the key player in UAAG. Let's go ahead and then uh, explain what is going on currently in our Grand Pressure Group. People who had followed our Grand Pressure Group for years, believing in their missions, rushed to register. After all, if the very organization that had fought against fake grant was now distributing palliative, it had it had to do it had to be real, right? Of course, somebody that is fighting against corruption coming up that he has something to deliver. Why won't you believe? That was what happened, and people dive in, people subscribe, people pay money, people were scammed. But just like before, no one was allowed to ask for proof. There were no official documents, no verification government record, just all Grand Pressure word. New registration fees, new contributions, more desperate Nigerians handing over their cash. Of course, that was what happened. People paid a lot. Now the circle is nearing its breaking point. Nigerians slowly waking up to the deception are started to ask questions. The All Grand Pressure Group of Nigeria, once seen as a voice of the people, is facing growing skepticism right now. So, what came next? Will they rebrand yet again? Will they reinvent, reinvent again? Will they disappear only to resurface under a new leadership? Let's take a look at if we will have another leadership of all Grand Pressure Group, because since the inception, they've been changing leadership based on their personal greed. Let's take a look at and see what will happen if this group would come up with another Or will this finally be the end of the long, twisted saga of deception? Let's take a look at what will happen. Now, to answer the question, I see, with having discovered this background of them, I see it to be like they are not helping the masses, because right from Supreme, they were the one that championed, and they were the mouthpiece advising Nigerians to pay money to Supreme that is real, not knowing that Supreme have bribed them. Of course, they come uh Theophilus, they go in, Theophilus welcome them and then give them go ahead. They became the mouthpiece, and they collected money from people, giving to Theophilus and collecting interest. Theophilus dashed them cars and all that. At the end of the day, because of greed, some other group broke out. And after that, they came up with another person, Apostle Ken Wakama. They became so aggressive, promising the people, convincing the people. They put in money, they back them, all UAG up. They even tell the masses to come for verification. They were there live supporting UAAG, Apostle Ken Wakama. Before you know, great came over. Apostle Ken Wakama did not give them the money they want. They split again. They came up with their own scam, collecting money from masses. Now, when you look at all these things, you get to know that these guys don't mean well for Nigerians. They open group all over. They fight themselves, fight anybody that wants to voice in their group. They will just remove you immediately. A grand pressure group. That is who they are in the grants community. They will remove you immediately if you dare mention their name in the grants community. Ustaz Dawood will fight you as if tomorrow is not there. But guys, you are dealing with the poor masses. There's consequence. If you can be supporting a group that you knew that there was no money, but because of the peanut you will get from that group, you support them and extort money from the masses, there is God. And don't worry, a time will come that you vomit. Now it has even started, of course. Some of you that were staying in the hotel in Abuja, you are back to your various home shamelessly. Of course, it has started already, and that is how you will depreciate. Those of you that leave your job enjoying the poor masses' money, don't worry, it is coming. They are not helping. That is just the bitter truth. They are not helping Nigerians. They are rather collecting money. Thank you for standing with us. We are here to update you on what is going on in the grants community. At the moment, the people collecting money for IMF, government slots, and palliative, please, our pioneer, please, guys, be careful. There's another strategy. I don't know if they are doing the right thing, but then we should be careful. We shouldn't spend much, but the money that you can afford to lose, give it out. Not all money. We've seen those that are to pay 5K, those are to pay 2K, those are to pay 15, 20, 100, 150, 300. Give out the money that you can afford to lose. These guys have been in this game for over 6 to 7 years. Nothing is coming forth. So let's be wise. Goodnews Live Update is always telling us the bitter truth about the situation in the grant ecosystem. Let's try and help ourselves. God bless everybody in the grants community.
Having exposed the truth behind all grand pressure group, I'm expecting the executives to come and attack me. Of course, that is their usual activities. Instead of them to disburse the grants they promised to the poor masses, they will now come to attack you. And so, therefore, I'm expecting them to come and attack me. Take a look at what happened to Honorable Farouk's, having exposed them. Now they are talking about Farouk, even to his father. They are exposing him. And of course, I'm waiting for them to come and expose me. We are here and we want the truth for the masses. They promise giving us money and they've collected money from us. Right from UAAG. Let me start from there. Up till now, we are still waiting for the money. How will you be the child and expect that a child not to say something? Bro, stars, before you attack me, please, we need the money. God bless you and we trust your leadership. Thanks.